real name is Ronald Dennis Wheeler, but I always went by Denny as a kid, and then later on I recorded under Dennis Wheeler. Um, my folks were from the Macon textile mill ground and lived there for quite a while. And back in the early days, I went to Bellevue School out on Napier Avenue, and got interested in music because I was in the church a lot, singing in church. Everybody seems to start off in church. And I had a brother, Hubert Wheeler, who was a minister of music at Maple White Baptist Church. So it all fit together. Had another brother, was a minister, Buford Wheeler. And they've all passed now, but back around 58, I guess it was, I really started seriously thinking about rock and roll, and but at that particular time I didn't know it, but I was working into rhythm and blues and a lot of black music. And I met a guy named Bobby Smith. What actually happened with that was I was working with a group called the Torcanes to start with here in Macon, and we had done the telethons, cerebral palsy telethons, and did some things out at the Air Force Base with Ed Steely, who was the head of the Musicians Union. And they talked me into going out to Lakeside Park, where Otis Redding, James Brown, and at that particular night, Charlie Rich was there, Ray Stevens, Big Buddy Kay, and was there another guy there? Wayne Cochran. And Wayne Cochran was being managed by Bobby Smith. So something happened with the equipment. They were trying to change the band around in between Otis and Wayne. And so I had been hounding Bobby Smith to listen to me at the Macon recording studio at the time. That was down on Georgia, at the Georgia Hotel. It's been since torn down. And that was kind of funny because his record label was called Confederate Records, and he had already started recording Otis Redding, and he cut a song called Fat Gal and Shout Bama Lamb on that label. It was really strange because they had to, the black stations wouldn't play that record label, so they moved it to another record label, Gala I believe it was. This is before Phil Walden took over management of Otis, and that was These Arms of Mine, which I had actually cut with the Playboys, Buddy Leach and the Playboys. We recorded that. But going back to where I really got started with it, they let me jump up on the stage, and I did a song called Johnny Be Good, and tore the house down. Not bragging, but it's just a fact. And so I did a couple of more songs there, and then Otis jumped up and sang with me on a couple of songs that we did, and Stormy Monday Blues and things like that. And I ended up going with the Playboys at that particular time, and Bobby Smith brought me into the Macon recording studio and cut a song called Rock Bottom on me and another one called Down in Daytona. And they sent it out to the radio stations, and King Records picked it up, which was Otis's label at one time, and also James Brown's label. And Little Junior Parker, a lot of black artists. And what happened was I sounded so much like Elvis Presley on the record that they got a call from Major Bill Smith and from Colonel Tom Parker, and said Elvis was going into the service and they did not want that record out there if they could possibly flip the side, which they did. And I've always regretted that because I had sounded so much like Elvis, it was leery for that record to be out. So what they did to me was they put me on Down in Daytona, which was a little bit more of a screamer rock and roll song. Rockabilly, more rockabilly. They decided that I sounded so much like Elvis that I had to change my style. So I started hanging out at Two Spot with Clint Brantley and all the it was a black club, and welcomed wholeheartedly down there, which was really right up my stream. It just made me feel great. And Percy Welch, that was another guy that was playing there a lot. I also met Little Richard and knew him real well. And it was one night that James Brown was there, and I got up and sang Stormy Monday Blues, and they just, the crowd went crazy over it, and made me feel real proud, because they said, man, he sounds just like a black singer, man. This is unreal. So I beat Elvis on that trip, because I was first in Macon, Georgia anyway, white artist that was working with nothing but black musicians and whatever, and of course my white group too, which really made me feel good. And I ended up doing a few spots in some of the Chitlin band circuits, the old circuits, and which was really unusual. And they finally kept working with me so long that all I was doing was R&B music, just rhythm and blues. And I stuck with that for, I guess, through just breaking onto the cusp of the hard rock and southern rock coming into the thing. And I cut a song called Satisfy You, which put me on United Artists record label, which was really good for me, because it got me really big national exposure and overseas too. And doing quite well with that. And then as luck would have it, I didn't hit the charts big enough that my contract finally ran out after 3 years, and they released a ton of songs on me, but I never got that signature song. So I ended up leaving that label and starting my own record label. And that's how I got into doing club work and working with Patty and Even Jones, which is it was called The Family Affair. And we did Las Vegas type music and show tunes and standards, and just did a variety of stuff like that. And I guess we did that up until the mid-70s. And I kind of slowed down from it and was doing disc jockey work, maybe producing a couple of songs yearly, and ended up going up to Nashville, Tennessee, and beginning to work with other artists. And that's basically where I started doing some country music. And that's when I started using the name Ron Dennis Wheeler. Down that road no more. No, Lord, I ain't going. Lord, I ain't going. I ain't going down that road no more. Lord, I was wasted now. I can't take it anymore. I'm towed down now with the wasted blues. I can't take it no more. I first met Little Richard when I was working for Snow's Laundry. And he would pull up in his big Eldorado Cadillac. And he was shiny, everything about him was shiny. And he would have me write on there, special care and all of this, and he only wanted me to take care of it. And then later on he found that I could sing, and that's how I ended up going to Two Spot and him coming in one night when I did a little show there. And that was fantastic with Little Richard. I mean, he's beyond words. He's what you see on TV is the way he is in real life too. He's just that flamboyant and likable and the whole 9 yards. And he liked me pretty much because I was doing the same thing at the time. Really wanted to mimic him. Now Otis, that was more than just a singer. He was my friend. He was a buddy. People just don't realize what a tragedy it was that he died so young. Phil Walden got his management contract from Bobby Smith and cut These Arms of Mine with him, and then that was a rocket. But Otis never once did he ever not stop to call and talk to me or talk to Stanley Kimball or Bobby Smith. He was a friend. He was always a friend. And needless to say, I loved the guy. He was a super brother. That's all it was to it. And singing with him was just wild because we've been in the studio before, and he would just sit down, and I asked him one time, I said, Otis, why do you put fap, fap, fap in every song you record? And it was funny. He says, because it puts the fap, fap, fap in the pocket book. And he was patting on his back going, fap, 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 fap. But I got me a song. Fap, 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 fap. Wrote a song that fast. And he'd do it with all of them. And then several times he'd come in the middle of the night and rehearse things that he wanted to put on the major label, or go over to. They didn't have Capricorn Studio at the time, so they went up to Stax and cut. But he would come down there, and Stanley Kimball and myself would go in and listen to these songs, and he would just put songs together, and then he'd go up there and break it out to the band. So that's a little stuff that people really might know of what was going on at the time. And then, the other thing that was funny too, as far as playing the black clubs on the Chitlin circuit, you know how they show that the black people always had to go through the back door, stay at the black hotels or whatever. Well, it was just the opposite for me, because I'd be working with them. They wouldn't let me stay in those places. I had to go to the other segregated part. Never understood that, because in Macon we didn't have that problem, especially with the musicians. So it was just so strange. And I did some sitting in at Woolworths when they had their sit-in demonstrations and all. And then I started playing at Grant's Lounge, and I was a house band there for 2 years. And we named the band the Prime Stuff Band. And we went out on the road with that too, went out to a bunch of places. I also backed up Billy Joe Royal and his band, his singing group, and we played countless shows, Jacksonville, Florida, and St. Petersburg, and Atlanta, and a lot of places with that. And that group, I was also fronting for a group called John Tice Band. Now this is my only Grammy story I have. When Richard Spencer and the Winstons came out with a song called Coloring Father, and it was the Rhythm Blues Song of the Year. I believe that was '67. And I had to do all the backup singing and all, and with John Tice Band, and they presented him with the Grammy. So I was in it, but I didn't get the Grammy. I'm working for one though. So I guess I played the Offbeat Club here in town. Roy Mathis, he had a nightclub down here. Played great keyboards. I sang with him a lot. Percy Welch, he was a great blues singer. Eddie Kirk, who was a black blues player like B.B. King and singer, great singer. And this last song that I was getting it ready for him to cut was called Tore Down Dirty Blues. And he got killed in a car wreck before he could record the song. So I went ahead and spent about 3 or 4 years, and I guess about 5 years now. So I recorded it and dedicated it to him, that he was going to sing the song, which was really great. I hear it in my head, and then I will either write the music in my brain and then go to an instrument and pick out the chords and things, or the words. And the words mean a lot to me, because I'm from the old era where you told a story in every song. That's the main thing I loved about the music. And that helped me with the black people, because I learned how they were singing. They called it the blues, but it was happy blues. They could sing about a lot of things that were controversial or whatever, but it was always an uplifting experience for me. And I loved the drum beats that they had a lot better than the straight music. And most black musicians, especially back then, they got it straight out of their head. They didn't have formal training, so if they played in the pockets, what we call it, you got to be in the pocket, especially with black music, and they just knew how to do it. It was something inborn with them, just natural. And I've met a few that couldn't dance, and I've met a few that couldn't sing, but most black folks could really sing well. The pocket is like where the drum and the bass are going to set a pattern, a rhythm pattern, and the beat is going to fall within that deal. So when you're singing, you've got to not only worry about carrying the tune, saying the words, but you've got to be within that and you got to have that feeling out and singing and yeah, that's the pocket. You got to be right into the pocket, and if it's not in the pocket, it sounds like Frank Sinatra trying to sing rock and roll. You know, it would just be too purdy. And there's very few white singers that can get in the pocket, actually. And I guess that's where the hip hop came from, because now everything is based on that pocket, and it's the beat of the music more than it is anything else. Being accepted in Macon, you have to, if you're going to be accepted in Macon, you got to be good. Because if you're not good, you will not be asked to perform again. But at the same time, there was enough places that you could get the experience behind it. That's what I loved about it. Macon was also big enough that it would make you feel like you was in a big city. But if you made it in Macon, it was like the old song, if you could make it in New York, you could make it anywhere. If you could make it here in Macon, Georgia, you could make it anywhere. I started off here in Macon. It was a great support for me. And I've been to every state singing at one place or another. So it's in my blood. It'll always be in my blood, and I'll always attribute that to Macon, Georgia, because they've had so many places that at one time that would support local talent, especially. And then from here, we had two great companies that would help any newcomer. Of course, Capricorn Records, and everybody knows about the experience of them. And then Bobby Smith and his studio, and Bob Lowe Records, which was like a demo company, and then he would sell it to other people. That's what I'm doing also with my company, R&R Music Recordings.